I'm Jim Quinn. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors for the National Summer Learning Association, or as you know, NSLA. I came to NSLA from the corporate world. I was an executive at a company that recently celebrated its 175th anniversary. You may have heard of it, Tiffany & Company. We understood that the most successful companies have a long-term horizon, that the best leaders think in generational timeframes. We serve our customers, and we invest in the communities of those customers that we serve. I discovered that the next best dollar spent on educating the workforce of the future is summer learning. I came to NSLA after I retired and after some research to understand the power of quality summer learning programs. Many have been on display here at this year's conference. I'm proud to be here on the occasion of NSLA's 25th anniversary, and I'm a true believer in the power of summer. I believe that all kids, regardless of their zip code, their abilities, their gender, or any of their circumstances, deserve quality summer enrichment opportunities that keep them safe, healthy, and engaged during this magical time that we call summer. Whether it's a trek at a nature center, canoeing in a lake, creating art, or coding their own app at a STEM summer camp. Summers matter for all young people, and especially our most vulnerable youth. Investing in summer learning lays a solid foundation for building our leaders of the future. And to me, that's the best return on investment our communities could ever ask for. This session is especially important as we take laser focus on what's possible when we shape program practices and opportunities that are truly inclusive and nurture the growth of every child. It's a privilege for me to introduce your moderator for this esteemed lineup of speakers today, Roberto Hill. He serves as the program director of the Princeton Blairstown Center and the National Board of Directors of the American Camp Association. In case you missed it yesterday, NSLA honored his Summer Bridge program with the New York Life Foundation's Excellence in Summer Learning Award. Roberto has an extensive career in the out-of-school time field and in working to empower students and families from all walks of life. He thinks of diversity as the crayons in the box and inclusion as the works of art they can create. I really like that. Roberto holds a BA in government from the University of Texas at Austin and a Juris Doctorate from New York Law School. In June of 2017, he joined the Social Justice Task Force of the Association for Experimental Education. Let's all welcome Roberto to the stage.
This conference's theme is Summer Changes Everything. Can you say that with me? Summer changes everything. We know this is the truth. We believe it, we do it, but unfortunately there's an ugly truth as well that accompanies this, and that's that not every child has access to dynamic summer learning opportunities. And that's because of things beyond their control, things like their zip code, their family's socioeconomic background, their abilities or disabilities, their gender, their sexuality. These are things that should not stop a child from having access to summer learning. Yesterday morning, we heard Mayor James talk about some of the consequences of kids not having the programs and services that they need. Things like joblessness, illiteracy, dropping out of school, involvement in the court system. One of the first jobs I had after graduating from law school was working for an alternative incarceration program called CASES, the Center for Alternative Sentencing and Employment Services in New York City. I shared this because I took two really great lessons from that. The first one, we quickly learned that there was a pattern. Kids were arrested during the school year between the hours of 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. And in the summer, it varied a little bit, but was generally from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. And if you think about it, it makes complete sense. It's after school, it's before mom and dad, who are generally working, are home, so kids are unsupervised. But I also know another thing. Those are the magic hours that we come alive. It's when I'm actually fully awake. and it's when we provide services for these young people. The other thing that I learned that I think is really valuable is that you have to look and meet kids where they are. I want to share a quick story. We were working with a young man who was a member of a gang, the Latin Kings, and he got into an argument and a scuffle, using one of my grandmother's words, with another kid from a rival gang called the Bloods. The staff did exactly what they were supposed to do. They intervened, they stopped the arguments, they stopped the fight, and we thought it was over. Unfortunately, it wasn't. The young man and the Latin Kings made one phone call, and within an hour, we had 100 gang members surround the building, which was frightening. Every staff member was in a panic, and rightfully so. But it was also awe-inducing, and by that, I was amazed by the leadership and the organizational skills that this group had, that within 1 hour, they had 100 people surround a building. It was organizational skills and leadership skills that at that time I didn't have, and quite honestly, I'm not sure I could pull that off today. How many of us could? But what I learned from that was to look at the positives of every situation and to really work with kids where they're at and help develop those innate skills. And I'm excited because our speakers today are going to talk about that. They work with special populations and they're helping them develop those innate skills within them. Before we get into their presentations, I would like to ask each of our panelists why summer is important to them, and specifically to the group that you're working with. Peter.
So the summers are the immersive portion of First Star Academies. They are starting with the summer before 9th grade, they are when we take classes of 30 foster kids, rising 9th graders, and we plonk them in the dorms and on the campus of a big university. We give them 12 peer mentors who are undergrad or grad students to be their role models, and it's where the glass ceiling comes off their heads and they look around and say, oh, there's this whole other way of being a young person, a high-achieving one.
Thank you. Sophia.
Hi. I feel like summers, coming from a background of really advocating for young people and adults with developmental disabilities, summers are incredibly important because this is a community that is oftentimes forgotten during the school year. So you can imagine the neglect that they face during the summer months. So I think it's really important to just draw attention towards that community, regardless of what time of year it is, because they always will need our help.
Yeah, thank you. Kyra.
So I look at the summer as an opportunity to be creative. Actually coming from a background that never had the opportunity to really attend summer programs, I do see the importance of it after starting my own nonprofit. And typically during the school year, the curriculum is structured for students to pass standardized tests. And we have to teach different soft skills for kids for them to find themselves, to be submerged into other activities and find where their passions lie so they can go and fulfill their purpose.
Thank you. So we're going to learn a little bit more about each of our guests, and if you'd like to find out more information about their backgrounds, please look in your program schedule as well as the app. But it's my honor right now to introduce Peter Samuelson. He is a film producer and the founder of First Star. If you were with us last night, you had the opportunity to see his latest film, Foster Boy. I'm not a crier, but I was teary-eyed throughout this movie. It is phenomenal. I encourage you, when it comes out next year, to come see it. And with no further ado, Peter.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to meet you and to have shown you my film. But I'm not here to talk about filmmaking. I'm here to talk about foster kids and what summers mean to them. In 1999, somebody gave me 2 documents out of the United Nations. One was the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. So you read it, it's about 5 pages long. It says children should have a name, they shouldn't have to join the army until they turn 18, they shouldn't be slaves, they shouldn't be sex trafficked, they're entitled to health care and an education and so on and so forth. Then you look in the back and it has a list of the 179 nations in the UN General Assembly. And you see that 177 have ratified this. It has the force of law. 2 have not. One is Somalia, where there is no central government to sign, and the other is the United States of America. I thought, I've never met an American who hated children. How can this possibly be? The other document is UNICEF. Every 2 years, they issue a survey of the developed world, the 23 richest nations in the world ranked by the welfare of their children, and we rank 1 from dead last. I couldn't get my head around it, so I did, I believe, a lot in research. I did a year and a half. Everywhere I went on business, I went through Washington, D.C. You know, Los Angeles to Seattle, oh, I can go through Washington. So I met with everyone who would meet with me, and I came to the conclusion that more than anything else, it was a failure of leadership and of new ideas. Einstein said, we'll never solve old problems by applying old solutions. We need to think outside the box, which is something which government is not terribly good at. It's something which large established foundations are not terribly good at, and private business is not there to solve social problems. It's there to, you know, serve the stockholders' return on investment. So the really big idea in the founding of First Star was that we asked ourselves the question, in the lives of foster kids, why did they not go to college? So 3% of American foster kids earn a degree. Only 9% of them even go to college in the first place. That's about a quarter of non-foster kids. And less than half of American foster kids graduate from high school. So we said, well, it's because they've been abused or neglected. And then we said, no, that's not the only reason. Of course, that gives them some PTSD. But the other reason is that they go into care where the goal of care is to keep them safe, which generally it does, not always, as you saw last night in the film. But generally it keeps them safe. But what there is an absence of, not in all cases, but in a lot, is love and encouragement. And academic encouragement of children turns out to be really necessary. Otherwise, you know, there's that saying in Silicon Valley, GIGO, G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't show young people what their life can be, you'll get the lowest common denominator of whatever they could think of on their own. I'll just sweep the floor in McDonald's for the rest of my life. So to replace the missing grown-ups who in a well-run family would encourage the children, we said, well, what have we got? We said, oh, hiding in plain sight, we have the nation's great universities. So I went and got myself a meeting with the chancellor of UCLA. I think he thought I'd give him money. Didn't. That's how I got the meeting. And I said, what we'd like you to do is to house, educate, encourage, give role models, and generally put your arm around, as a large university, 14-year-old foster kids. Oh, and by the way, we'd like them to live here and learn here for 4 years, from 9th grade through 12th grade. And he said, okay, I think we can do that. Let me get some other people into the room. It was amazing. I mean, I think it was from God, and it was meant to be, so it was. So we started in 2011 at UCLA. We now have 13 academies. Here are the stats. You heard me say that less than half of American foster kids graduate from high school. Over the last 3 years, every single one of our 12th graders has graduated from high school, so that would be good. And that's all 13 academies right across the country. You also heard me say that 9% of American foster kids go to college. In the most recent 3 years, average across the country, we sent 91% of our American foster kids to college. 51% went to a 4-year, plus 40% went to a 2-year community college, some of whom later to transfer over for their junior and senior years to a 4 years to get a bachelor's. So it's a huge success. How do we do it? I don't think any of it's rocket science. All we do is that we partner with a big university and local community people, and we recruit rising ninth grade foster kids working with Child Protective Services and with their middle schools. It's a wonderful interview essay that they write. The prompt is, please imagine that it is your 100th birthday party and your best friend who's known you your whole life makes a toast. What would you like them to say? And we look for any kind of ambition. We are not creaming. In the rare cases where we find a foster kid who's living, let's say, with 2 medical doctors and getting straight A's and is clearly going to college, we should not use a bed for that young person. At the other end of the spectrum, these unfortunate souls who are seriously mentally ill, we've tried. We can't deal in a cohort setting with paranoid schizophrenia. We're really good at OCD, ADHD, and those are successes. So we're taking pedagogically, it's called additionality. We're fundamentally asking ourselves, if we help this kid, will they go to college? Probably, yes. If we don't help this kid, will they almost certainly not go to college? Correct. Those are the kids we want. It's the middle 50%. It's like watching flowers grow. We don't only have them live on the campus for 4 weeks each summer, times 4 summers. We also bring them back. Honestly, it wouldn't be enough to just do the summers because the dream would die in between. So from September through June, we bring them back on a Saturday. The university van fleet sends out their vans and they pick them up. Some of our kids, especially in cities like Los Angeles, have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get there in time. And we repeat the curriculum. We also bring in the caregivers, the foster families, if they'll come, and they get seminars on how to be a better foster family. How do you help your kid with their math homework if you yourself don't understand it? That kind of thing. Children can't do homework with the television running and with earbuds in. Simple things like that. So many of our foster families, there is a financial component in why they agreed to be foster families in the first place. They may have left school early, English may be their second language, and so forth. So we are there to advocate for the students in their high schools, as well as to very intensely give them role models. Who we hire to be the peer mentors on the university campus are ex-foster youth who are now undergrad or grad students. And there are usually 12 of them per class of 30 students. So they are the ones, the big brother, big sisters that they've never had. I used to want to think that I was a dad figure, and then in some interviews that were done, I was described as, I love Peter, he's like the grandpa I never had. I see him coming towards me like a little old penguin. God bless. So it just works. Now let me just focus very briefly on Missouri, Mizzou. So we're working with the University of Missouri and with Missouri MCCA, Missouri Coalition of Children's Agencies, Jeremy Milarski, and we're working with some people in the university. We want to bring it to 1 or more campuses. There is great need here in this state. If there's anyone in this room who would like to be part of that effort, we're trying to get a meeting with the chancellor at the moment. If you happen to live next door to the chancellor of the University of Michigan, I wish you would come and see me after this session ends. We will get it done. We'll have 4 more academies this year, and we're also expanding now in the United Kingdom. We just had the delicious opportunity of bringing some of our American graduates over as paid youth coaches at the St. Mary's University London Academy, where it went really, really well, and I got a postcard from one of them visiting the Louvre in Paris, which God knows everyone should do. So that's what I got. I'm so happy to have your ear. Let me show you what it looks like, and you'll also see the faces of some kids. Let's run the video, please. At any given point in time, about 450,000 kids are in formal foster care. In the United States, less than half of foster kids graduate high school. I say this to the foster kids all the time. You are not defined by your parents or grandparents or uncles or aunts. You actually are only defined by how hard will you work and will you have consistent grown-ups who will help you. My name is Peter Samuelson. I am the co-founder of First Star and I'm its president. 1999, I was professionally a film producer. I had founded 2 major nonprofits. So I sort of was in the rhythm of I can start these things up and kind of nurture them a bit. Our primary program is the First Star Academies, where we partner in different cities with local child protective services, the government that look after foster kids, and with the local university.
The Academy takes middle school and high school students and brings them to the university for a summer program and then follows up with those students throughout the year. And it's quite exciting. And the Academy offers us the ability to actually impact the lives of foster youth at a time when they are most vulnerable and at a time when they are prepared to start looking at universities.
There's an application process, there's an essay in it, and we look for really any spark of frustration, ambition. Why does my past have to define my future? I want to be a scientist, I'm really interested in literature. Really, it could even be anger, you know, really, why me? Why do I have to be in foster care? And I want to be someone. We don't pay too terribly much attention to their grades, because in many of these situations, the grades are a product of the environment and the instability, and not so much of the intellectual capacity of the youth.
It's an understanding here that we at UCLA are not just educating our students for California, we're educating our students for the world.
If you are a child, how would you ever improve your situation? You don't vote. You don't have any money. There are no lobbyists working for you. It is ultimately a civil rights struggle. It's the American civil rights struggle that never even had a beginning. It's an interesting thing about all teenagers that I've ever met. They all want to emulate upwards. Give them professors and you give them high-achieving PhD students and just totally cool people. It's like watching flowers grow. It's family for kids who are devoid of family. Our goal is obviously to get as high a proportion as possible into college. 91% in the most recent 2 years. We got 51% into 4-year bachelor's courses at universities, plus 40% into 2-year community colleges. So we've got 91% of the kids into college. And of the remaining 9%, some went into the military or they went to vocational school. And they all, by the way, graduated high school. What do I get out of this? It makes me feel 25 feet tall. I love these kids.
It only takes one caring adult to change the life of a foster youth. Find out how you can help to fosterchange.org.
Peter, thank you for sharing your work with us. If we can give him another round of applause. Before I introduce our next speaker, there were 2 quick takeaways that I just wanted to share with you. The first was that it's not rocket science. We can do this. We can continue to make a difference, and we can have a huge impact on the future of every child in America. The other thing, and it's a word that's come up throughout the conference for me, is partnerships. So just keep that in mind. We're going to have some time for a question and answer session at the end, so please keep your questions ready for us. It's my honor now to introduce our next speaker, Sofia Dominguez-Heidoff. She is Miss Teen USA 2017 and has a passion for working with young people of all varying disabilities. Sofia.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope you don't mind if I stand up here and talk to you for a little while. But I am just so honored to be here in my own hometown And so, good morning, Kansas City. It feels amazing to be home today. And if you are sitting in this auditorium right now, it obviously means that you want to help. It means that you are here on your own time because you recognize an issue taking place in your own community, and you want to figure out the best way in which you can solve that issue. You are looking for real, tangible solutions to help close the achievement gap between all students. And throughout my own life, I have dedicated myself to closing the achievement gap within adults and children with disabilities. My very Aunt Joanne is 44 years old, and she is my very best friend. My earliest memories in life are of playing dolls with my aunt and having no understanding that she was over 26 years older than me. My strong relationship with my aunt has really sparked a passion within me to seek change within my own community and her community, which is often left in the shadows, especially during the summer months. At the age of 15, I'm now 18, I earned my Girl Scout Gold Award, which is the highest award in all of Scouting. I knew at a very young age that with my parents' encouragement, setting a goal of completing the entire Scouting experience was something that was innate to who I was. As a part of this award, I explored and advocated for issues that directly impact people like my aunt. I combined this cause with one of my greatest passions, politics. My project was to address the challenges that those with disabilities face on an everyday basis, from food insecurity to inadequate health care and diminished special education summer programs. I wanted to fix it all. Wow, I was definitely not a normal 15-year-old. I met with representatives from agencies throughout the Kansas City area who provide housing, staffing, healthcare, and jobs to people with disabilities and asked them, what are the deeply rooted issues that are facing our society, and what policies within the government are working against those who are disabled? I became obsessed with making a difference, so much so that I compiled all of the research and I marched, or rather I took the train to Jefferson City, which if you're not from Missouri, that is the state capital, to speak with legislators who were representing me and my family on the issues that were plaguing my aunt's community. And I wanted to know what they could do to help. I remember having so much fear of rejection, of embarrassment, or just all-out failure. But like my mom always says, the worst thing anyone can say is no. The fact that community-based provider systems were the only safety net for people like my Aunt Joanne, and that the majority of disabled Americans were living below the poverty line through no fault of their own, seemed completely ludicrous to me. So I helped make my legislators more accountable for those who cannot always speak for themselves. Thankfully, two representatives on both sides of the aisle, talk about some bipartisanship leadership, listened to my case, and that's exactly how an activist was born. At the age of 15, when I could not legally operate a motor vehicle without adult supervision, I could not vote in elections, I could not even buy a lottery ticket, I helped create legislation. The following September in 2016, I won Miss Missouri Teen USA because I Googled top scholarships for young women, and pageantry was the second thing that came up. I gained a golden ticket to the Miss Teen USA competition, and I had no idea the direction that my life was taking me. Whoa, you may all be thinking something similar to what I was thinking at the time. How did I go 360 degrees around from being interested in public policy to now participating in the largest pageant for girls under the age of 18? Well, in fact, the confidence that I gained advocating for people with disabilities in the Missouri State House carried over quite wonderfully to the pageant stage. I dedicated my year of service to representing Missouri by continuing my efforts in aiding the disabled community. And in August of 2017, my life changed forever when I won the title of Miss Missouri, Miss Teen USA. At the time, winning the national pageant was not even on my radar. I was about to start my freshman year of college, an entire year early at the age of 17. I went from a whirlwind media week in New York City, being on Good Morning America, Fox and Friends, featured in USA Today, to sitting in my very first lecture hall at the University of Kansas in a matter of weeks. My freshman year of college was not typical by any means. Every weekend I was in a different state. Whether I was advocating for provider rebasing of disabled individuals' health care, guest appearing at the Miss Universe competition, or sitting next to congressmen and women at the March for Our Lives. I knew that I was always going to do my best effort to make a difference to best represent my state and my country to the best of my ability. When I think back upon my life experiences in the past 18 years, I truly believe that I would be nowhere if it were for my parents. My mom was always in a constant search for summer programs for me when I was young. I didn't realize at the time that not every child had the ability to be in science camp one week, dolphin camp one week, and Girl Scout camp. I had a packed summer. I was one of a finite percentage of children who had an incredibly dedicated mother, committed to my success, and that access to opportunity were greater for me because I was born able-bodied. This was not the case for my Aunt Joanne, and this is not the case for many people who are born like her. When it comes to summer learning for disabled children, access is everything. Many families spend so much of their money on heightened healthcare costs and pricey pharmaceuticals, which are a necessity for most disabled children, that the costs of summer learning programs are just simply not feasible. Inclusive programs for disabled children are needed in all 50 states, especially in the areas which are below the poverty line. And we all must remember that poverty exists everywhere. It exists in urban areas, it exists in suburban areas, it exists in rural areas. Poverty is next door to us. We need to make sure that families don't incur additional costs as they seek programs out of state. We must educate mainstream organizations on the needs and barriers of disabled children so that they can market to this very community and increase access. Organizations are needed to provide incentives such as scholarships backed by certain philanthropies or individual giving so that summer programs doors may be opened to the disabled community. We need to put transportation into the summer learning equation because most parents work all year long and cannot get their children to summer learning programs without organized transportation like a school bus, especially taking into consideration handicapped transportation, which can be an extreme factor on whether or not it is accessible. Cultural competency training for educators and organizational leaders is necessary to provide for disabled students who face intersectional oppression. At the end of the day, it is about valuing disabled people and their lives as much as we value able-bodied people and their lives. This starts from your vocabulary by cutting out the R word and discontinuing your use of the word lame, slow, etc., as language is the very bloodstream of our own society. We can continue to provide support for this community and show how we value people with disabilities by starting clubs at our very schools, or starting organizations in your schools about anti-bullying and Down syndrome awareness. It is as simple as befriending a person like my aunt. I really think it will add a lot of happiness to your life. And it is simple as smiling at someone across the room who you may think needs a boost of happiness that day. Now, you all may have noticed that I introduced myself as Sofia Dominguez Haitoff. rather than my title of Miss Teen USA 2017. This is because I believe that we are not defined by our situations. We are rather defined by our actions and our ability to make a positive difference in the lives of others. Each of us from every single state, yes, we can make a difference. And I chose to create a community of learning and inclusion through my platform of respecting and valuing disabilities, to make sure that we are valuing the differences between all of us. I challenge you all to do the same. To really make sure that you, as leaders, educators, mentors, and parents, although it may seem like a difficult, very long path, there is nothing more rewarding than being a part of something larger than yourself. I chose to make a difference in honor of my Aunt Joanne. We all have people in our lives that call us to service, and I ask you to attempt to be a catalyst of change for your friends and your friends' friends, because tolerance is no longer enough. Inclusion must be given to people with disabilities through people like me and you working together to end stigmas, providing access to summer learning programs, and breaking down the barriers that hold back people who are disabled. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story. I hope that in some way I may have inspired you to work and to increase access for disabled students in summer learning programs. We must continue to work together to create a legacy about planting seeds in a garden that we may never see. When we do, our youth will be stronger than ever, and disabled individuals will be pushed out of the shadows and into the light. Thank you so much, and may you never forget the power that is within you.
What did you say?
Thank you for Sophia for sharing your passion and your aunt's story. I think it touched many of us, and I think, as you said, when we start to be mindful of our language and practice inclusion, we can have such an impact on so many people. So thank you again. It's my honor now to introduce our last speaker, Kyra McCullough, Miss USA 2017, and founder of Science Exploration for Kids. She's going to discuss her passion for young women of color in the STEM world. Kyra.
Okay, let's go. So actually, is there a water up here? Have you ever been so nervous you get cotton mouth? Anybody else? No? I would like just a little taste of water before I start. But, just to give a little background, so my name is Kyra McCullough, and I currently work at the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and I also have my own nonprofit called Science Exploration for Kids. And today, I don't have a presentation for you because I don't want anyone to multitask, but rather give you a simulation of the things that I do within my nonprofit and the techniques that I also use at Science Exploration for Kids. So for everything that I do, it's so fitting with the theme, which is shaping inclusive practices for every child to grow. And there's a cup of water. Thank you. Okay, there was water bottles up here earlier. I don't know what happened to them. Oops. Okay, I think I pressed this button. Nope. Sorry, actually I don't know which button to press. Okay, there we go. All right, so does anyone have a sheet of paper in front of them? I would like for you to participate in this exercise. I basically just want to show you something that I do with some of the students. So if you don't have one, participate as you can or just listen carefully. So just like in school, I'm the instructor and all of you are the precocious students, right? That are really, I have one, thank you, Mom, that are willing and ready to learn, right? So fold your paper hamburger style or short ways, whatever suits your fancy. I prefer hamburgers, turkey burgers now, actually. I don't eat red meat anymore, so. And once you do that, just open it up. And on the left side in the corner, write the number 1. And on the right side in the corner, write the number 2. And I will gauge the audience and just put your paper and pencil down. All right, so this next part may be awkward, brace yourselves, but that's what learning is all about, right? Pushing through awkwardness and finding a comfort zone. So I need everyone to just take a deep breath. Inhale. Exhale. Actually, it's just really, really relieving, is it not? That's the reason why I wanted you all to do it. But we're up early in the morning, and I want you all to just follow along with this exercise. Close your eyes. Now, think of a scientist. And answer these 3 questions in your head. What does your scientist look like? What is your scientist wearing? And what type of science does your scientist study? What does your scientist look like? What is this person wearing? And what does your scientist look like? All right, don't fall asleep now. You can wake up, open your eyes. Now on your paper on the left side, I want you to get creative. Now we're going to go back to our childhood days, right? We always want to make sure we still have that spark inside of us. That's how we engage the next generation. So on your left side, either draw your scientist or write a few sentences describing that scientist using those 3 questions. I know everyone in here is a Pablo Picasso, so I'll just give you a few minutes. Paper to the pen. If anybody wants a piece of paper, let me know. I'm glad to run off this stage and give you one. Did you think of a scientist back here? Okay. Gotta make sure everyone's participating. And I do this with my students because I remind them that there are no right or wrong answers. I just want to know their personal thoughts and feelings. So just take your time, draw the scientist you envisioned, and then we're going to answer some more questions. All right. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you drew a male scientist? A female scientist? How about a mad scientist? Oh, I like that. I like you. You win. All right, I do this exercise with my students because I want to see what implicit biases they unknowingly encounter. This, in return, helps my nonprofit, Science Exploration for Kids, map out better inclusive learning styles and experiences to cater to the students for science and engineering. I often always get that one little girl who wants to be a scientist but doesn't draw herself as a scientist. So that's why we do that project, and that's why it also falls in line with shaping inclusive practices. We want students to realize that the sky is the limit, and because representation may not be out there for you right now, it does not mean you are not capable of achieving that goal. So thank you for participating. Just hold on to your papers. We will revisit them again, and when you're done, recycle, okay? So I started Science Exploration for Kids because I wanted to help students that didn't have access to after-school or summer programming just like myself. I'm actually a military child, and when we moved back from Japan, back stateside from Japan, we didn't have access to after-school programming at all. So when you're overseas on bases, it's more available and it's actually free. So I participated in DeFi for about 3 summers living in Japan as a student. And SC4K also brings a different dynamic of representation for all backgrounds of students, but with a special emphasis on our little girls. And that's why most of my team is made of female scientists as well. I have nuclear engineers, I have people that are professors that are also scientists at the National Standards of Learning in the Maryland area. So, and in my opinion, I'm not sure about you, but the best way to build something is off vulnerability and personal experience, and that is actually what you tapped into. He read my speech earlier. No. So if you can, I would like for us to lend our eyes to this video. I wish I say, I videotaped it, but I would like to also give kudos to anyone in here who's an event planner. That is by far one of the most difficult jobs on earth. So if you are, give yourselves a round of applause if you've ever planned anything. But this past March, my team and I hosted our first one-day STEAM workshop for the youth in the DC metropolitan area. We broke the day up into 2 parts. We had elementary school in the morning and middle and high school in the afternoon. And we planned STEAM challenge stations for the students. We also had a volunteer from one of the top performing engineering schools in Rockville, Maryland that brought a 3D printer and demonstrated how it worked and also made keychains for the kids to take home. We had other leading industry sponsors such as Facebook, Bechtel Construction Corporation, Excel Services Consulting, and they too also brought hands-on activities for the kids to participate with. For the high school and middle school portion, we also brought we invited the Chief Information Technology Officer from the Small Business Administration because he actually has a degree in mechanical engineering and has a passion for giving back to students in STEAM learning as well. So the students took away a lot from that. They were able to connect with him and also find other opportunities for scholarships and summer programming for the parents. So I'm sure many of you have already had, you know all the facts, but I just want to transition to the facts that also are very important to me and why we started Science Exploration for Kids. Research shows that the greatest amount of summer learning losses during a child's elementary school years for low-income students. And as mentioned, that's no secret, right? So women make up about half of the workforce in America, but only represent 24% of the workforce in STEM fields. It's pretty alarming, right? But why should you care, you're probably asking? First and foremost, that statistic calls attention to an untapped potential. Talent that we need in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to remain competitive at a global level. But for women, that is more important on another level because careers in STEM industries are better for compensation and as well as for career development. And I would like to add, I fully stand behind that statement. And to me, that is absolute empowerment, to put women in positions that aren't as available right now, and especially in technology. I'm a big fan of Girl Scouts as well. So Girl Scouts says that 47% of their girls say that they would feel uncomfortable if they were the only girl in a group or a class. I have witnessed it when I've gone to other summer programs in New York City, and I've also lived through it as a young girl as well. Even in college, for all my internships, I was always the only woman as well as African American. So for the best practices around inclusion, summer learning in STEM is important during the impressionable years of a child's life. So we have to continue to fix that leaky pipeline and stay competitive from a global perspective. As mentioned, that event from the video I showed you was called Take Flight with SC4K and Miss USA. And we wanted to give back to students that didn't have financial access to summer or after-school programming. And I really want to take a moment to highlight what we learned at that event and why it ties in so well with the topic, shaping inclusive practices for every child to grow. The participation was amazing. We had about 140 kids, and if you notice the date, which was March 24th, I had planned the event in January, but then the school shooting in Orlando had happened. So then the March for Our Lives was that day as well, on March 24th. So to still have a turnout of 140 kids, I was very proud about that, but I was also thankful that people were very ready to participate in that march. So many parents needed financial aid to sponsor their children, and they were more appreciative that our program for that one-day camp was actually free. And guess what? That was required by Facebook. They said, if you want us to give you money to participate for this event, we can't allow you to charge. I agreed because I knew the magnitude of Facebook helping, and I understood firsthand that comes when people don't have the proper financial resources to enter into programs. At the camp, we invited students with intellectual disabilities from the Best Buddies nonprofit. It's an amazing nonprofit. We also did a pre- and post-assessment to see if students learned and retained information during their experience. We gave the kids autonomy to choose the STEAM challenges they wanted to do. And at one point, they all flocked to the balloon rocket experiment in a 3D printer. And as the kids say, that was pretty lit to see because science is cool. Y'all like that, right? Science is so cool. So continuing the ideas of shaping inclusive practices, SC4K's next steps are to host the free one-day camp again, but in May in DC as well. And we want to have 200 students attend. We're also going to host 3 one-week SE4G, which is Science and Engineering for Girls camps, for approximately 45 girls in grades 5th through 8th. We're going to have one in Montgomery County, one in DC, and because of this conference, because of everyone participating with the National Summer Learning Association, I am going to work as hard as I can to make sure we have a one-day camp in the summer in Baltimore as well for the girls. Okay. Yeah, if you've never been to Baltimore, it's a very poverty-stricken place, and we have to make sure we're giving back to the community as much as possible. My father is actually originally from Baltimore, so you've got my word. I'm going to make sure it happens. And hopefully, SC4G will be possible with your help and even spreading the word. We're going to make sure that we get enough funding, like I said, to cover 45 girls at $400 for the week for the camp. So in theory, everyone loves summer, and as soon as the school bell rings, students grab their backpacks and run out the door, leaving all the thoughts of dangling particles and quadratic equations behind, right? But that's what SE4K is doing. We're demystifying that. We're making sure that learning is practical, or as we like to call, fun with a purpose. Research analyzed that it becomes clear that summer learning programs shouldn't be a luxury or just an afterthought. It should be accessible to all, and that's why you all are here, and I want to make sure you all know that you are doing an amazing job at that too. So continuing shaping inclusive practices to me is more than just advocating for summer learning and reaching out to high-performing at-risk children. It's about representation and both gender and racial diversity and acceptance. We have to maintain young talent and change the statistic that only women make up 24% of the workforce, the STEM workforce. And we must expose children to options and people that relate to them as well. So on the other side of your paper, let's visit that paper again. On the side that says number 2, I love that people participate. Seriously, that's good. So on the other side of number 2, I want you to answer this question. What will you do to ensure no child falls through the cracks of critical summer months? It's your personal journal. I just want to make sure you all know that you're going to give back in some way possible. And I also wanted to share with you, we have a science project up here, and I'm going to have these 3 people help out, but we also want 2 more people from the audience to help out as well to do a science project that we do with a lot of our kids when we visit schools. Anybody we have one volunteer? Green shirt, let's go. What's your name? Kim. And what's your name? Your name, yeah. Corey. Kim and Corey. Let me get one more. One more? I saw someone. What's your name? Ashley, come on up. The price is right. Come on up. Let's go. Woo! So as we set up for the science experiment, it's called foam gnomes. Not sure if you've done it before, but it's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is have you 3 as well come up. Actually, Roberto. Yeah, because I called one more person from the audience. Unless you want to do it, I can set one up for you. Okay. So everyone just grab a station and a stick, and I'll explain everything in a minute.
Don't drink it.
Station and a stick. So you have 2 cups, yeah? You can keep them on the table for a second. You can bring them closer to you, but just you don't have to hold them. That's all I'm saying. Perfect. Okay, so this is called foam gnomes. Now in here we have polyurethane, we have A and B. So one is an acid and one is a base. So when these 2 things mix together, they're going to create a lot of heat. And the heat is going to get trapped inside of these bubbles and create something that's going to be surprising. Does anybody know what's going to happen? Shh. Wait, what's your name again? Ashley. Ashley. Shh. Okay. So the trick is for this, you're going to take the lighter color, which is the polyurethane B, and you're going to put it into the darker one, but it's okay, don't do it just yet. And what you're going to do is you're going to stir really, really fast, about 100 times, and then you're going to see something happen. But don't pull your stick out the cup. You're going to keep your stick in the cup and guide it up as you can, and what we're going to do is whoever has the biggest one wins this challenge. You're probably thinking biggest one, who knows, but Ashley knows. Don't say anything, Ashley. Okay, so what you're going to do is just take the lighter one, pour it into the polyurethane A, and use your stick and stir as fast as you can, about 100 times, and keep your stick inside the cup and guide your experiment up as it comes out. Oh, Ashley's way ahead of all of you. She's way ahead. She's stirring really fast. She's stirring fast. All right, they're stirring, they're stirring, they're stirring. and like rest for a second to see if it's going to start the chemical reaction? I'm scared too. The best thing about science that I teach my students is you do it more than once. Okay, and then there you go. Keep stirring, 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 and keep your stick in the cup. There you go. Keep stirring, stirring, stirring really, 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 really fast. There it goes. It's okay. It takes time. It is hot, so it's creating an exothermic reaction. So in here, you have your acid and your base mixing together, and it's creating, oh, should I get that off your shirt? Are you okay? Okay. Okay, sorry. Anyway, okay, now stop stirring, stop stirring, and watch it grow. Put it on the table, stop stirring, put it on the table, watch it grow. Got it up with your stick. I'm sorry, got it up with your stick. No. Okay. So who has the tallest one? All right, let's do this. Apollo, is it this one? How about this one? This one? This one?
Hold on, teamwork. They're stuck
These
together.
ones? Okay, so this is right here. This is called foam gnomes. It's just an experiment I do with kids at all age. I mean, look, even adults think it's cool. So in here, we actually created insulation, which is foam. So we have the polyurethane A, which is an isocyanate, and the polyurethane B, which is a tertiary amine. So mixing these two acids and bases together creates an exothermic chemical reaction. So we had a chemical change as well as a state change as well as a color change. And that's how we incorporate art into science. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Things that I'm so passionate about and things I was so glad to share with you all. So representation is key in fixing the leaky pipeline. I hope I was able to give you all something to leave with. So let's support everything that National Summer Learning Association does and the SC4K and everyone else up here. Thank you.